previously on Drone Wars.
Basically, every day gets me excited because there's so much we should do as the West to help Ukraine defend itself. We have done too little, too late. They're fighting the Russians, they're not fighting the Taliban. And I think this is why a lot of US hardware, especially in the beginning and probably still as of today, is not working, right? I think, coming back out of Ukraine, then we're probably much better prepared for Taiwan. But then again, China is not Russia, right? My name is Florian Seibel. I'm the CEO of Quantum Systems, and I'm happy to be on the Drone Wars podcast today.
So one of the things that I think we find fascinating, and there's a bunch of debates going on in America, is around like training versus software. And you talked about this earlier, right? But you talk to Ukrainians, all these guys do is three things, right? They mission plan, they fly, they after action it, and they go to bed, and then they do the whole thing again in 24 to 48 hours, right? But that is their job, is to basically fly operations with autonomous systems. Yeah. We're in the very beginning of figuring out what these groups are going to look like in the United States. And I think Western Europe is doing some of the same things, right? But how important is, in your opinion, the training aspect versus the software to maybe make the operation of the drone better, right?
So I think when I said we need to make it the flying iPhone, that's step one. And then, what do people do on their iPhone? They play games, right? So we need like some sort of gamification of drone operations. We need to have apps. Every drone system should come with, 10 levels from easy to expert that you can, go back on your bunk and train it and fly it. And there's no like super expensive digital classroom needed. Right. And how they used to do that, you sell the government like millions of training curriculums and all of that. Like a trainer from the industry is like $8,000 a day and blah blah blah. So I think free software, a lot of software will be free. I see a big shift. I think Angular is a good example of it takes software and hardware. There's some companies in Germany that are making a shift now. We have a big company in Germany that was pitching just on software. They made that switch to hardware now. So I think the software eats the world is not completely true in defense. It's a combination of hardware and software. And and training. You really need to be a master of your system. And it's all there. You need to do that in infrared and in multispectral and in EO and in low light with GPS, without GPS, in storm and snow, and you can simulate all of that. Again, Ukraine is ahead of this. The first FPV simulators came in from Ukraine, right? And then China, I think, rapidly adopted it. So you see these like tons of Chinese kids practicing how to fly. And this really scares me, because we're not doing that. We have not even started to do that on a large scale. So maybe your new defense minister is a more disruptive guy. Maybe he's listening to the annual stakeholders and the likes. I think they have the political influence and power to hopefully influence. Peter Thiel is our investor, so we do have some access. But like in Germany, it's really hard to get hurt by the highest level because that's really old school and takes quite some talking and change of mind and mindset to convince them that this won't help them win the next war.
Let's switch gears for a second. Let's talk a little bit about Stark, right? Tell us, where did the idea come from? You guys just raised a seed and a Series A, I think, or you just got some pretty good funding. Tell us about the vision for that company.
Yeah, so I mean, the reason for Stark is quite obvious. So when we raised money with Quantum, we onboarded some investors that they cannot invest in weapons. So we have that very strict ESG compliance framework in Europe, whereas drugs, pornography, gambling, and defense or weapons is a no-go. And so we had to accept taking some of that money as early as 2019, 2022, 2021, that Quantum could probably never do that. So we drew a red line for our investors to make Quantum investable as a dual-use company, but also for a lot of our employees. It's different being in Germany than in the US. It's a sensitive topic in Germany, especially with our history. Working in defense or on weapons is not perceived as something that helps society. I personally do have a different opinion on that, but I had to accept these boundaries with Quantum. But I also felt the necessity that a lot of the hardware and the software we have been working on could basically be easily reused for Stark, which is my second company that is now basically doing the same that Quantum is doing, but in the loitering munition and deep strike landscape. And so I had to set up a new company. There was a long discussion with some of our investors. Some of them would have loved us to do that within Quantum, but it was just not possible to find a legal way of doing that. So the second best option was also not a carve out or something, because that would have implied that a lot of the technology gets reused. And so clean sheet approach, new company, new funding, new investor base. And that's what I did last year. So early 2024. And then maybe we lost a little bit speed, but as you know, getting the team going, bringing founders on board takes a while. Fundraising took a while, but I guess we're good now. So we're doing great. We're flying in Ukraine. We're flying basically constantly and cannot really go beyond that. But I think it's really needed also in Europe, not only to have a Quantum as an ISR company, but Stark and others and companies like you in the US to compete. And in the end, this is what makes products perfect competition. Totally. Otherwise, we all get lazy and bored and only jump as high as we need to. And but if I don't know how high Dan is jumping, I better make sure I try to jump as high as I can, right? And that's what we're doing with Stark.
Yeah. How is that influencing the overall? How would you say the discussions in Europe have changed over the last year or two around drones and loitering munitions as an important tool in everyone's arsenal?
I think it has changed a lot. We had these discussions about the European Union having the AI Act, like rules and guidelines for AI. And, the end of it is that we are missing out software deployments from Apple and others that cannot be part of a Europe release on their latest iPhone software, because it would not be compliant with the EU AI Act, right? So I think we are harming ourselves by setting up boundaries and guidelines before we actually know what might be possible with a certain technology. So I have the different approach. You should at least play with it and find out what is it capable of, and then you can start regulating it. Sure. But how can you regulate something if you really don't know what it is capable of? And that applies for many areas. So with loitering munition and weapons, it's a little bit the same. The public opinion in Germany always was, human in the loop, and ultimate decision comes from the operator. It needs to sit in the airplane. You cannot have weapons on a drone. So the question is, why can you have weapons on a fighter jet or on a bomber? I mean, why can artillery shoot and fire, and they fire, and then the bullet or projectile goes for like 2 minutes. You cannot abort, right? So this is gonna hit, even if there's a group of kindergarten kids like walking in front of the Russian tank, the artillery will strike, right? So I think it's a very honest. It's not honest what the discussions we are having, like that you need a human abort until the last millisecond, right? This is just It's not possible with a lot of weapon systems we're using today. So why does it have to be in there for drones, right? So why can we not have the same standards as for what we are already using? So I think this has been accepted now. I think, seeing all these videos in Ukraine and what China is doing, and I think that was a wake-up moment also for German defense and procurement and politicians, that it probably is a good idea to, if you don't want our kids to fight Chinese war robots, we should start working with that stuff. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, I had an off-the-record conversation with some folks from the EU, the UN, specifically around the use of AI on the battlefield. And to a person, they said, we need guidelines, but we also need the ability to take the guidelines away because we know our adversaries are building this. It was fascinating because I expected to go into this conversation having them say there's no chance AI should ever be used on a battlefield. And they actually were saying the opposite, where we need some sensible guidelines for like a human on the loop, but we also need to have like an unrestricted solution too, because if we don't have it, then we lose our deterrent capability. I found it fascinating and I didn't expect that at all. So it sounds like the videos we see in Ukraine are actually starting to have an effect on like just how transformational autonomous systems are going to be on the battlefield.
Absolutely. And, in the end, I don't know how all of this will play out, but I mean, wouldn't it be great if we just have like robots fighting robots?
Yeah.
I mean,
the front line of robots, the floor, FLOR.
Yeah, I mean, you remember these? I was in Germany when I was a kid, like it was on Eurosports or something. They had these robo wars.
Yeah, BattleBots here. Same thing, right?
Yeah, so like, okay, looks like we missed 20 years of evolution or hit the pause. I mean, we were there like 25 years ago.
Sure.
Right?
Drone Wars is recorded from Firestorm's global headquarters in San Diego, California. Each episode is filmed inside our X-Cell, a modular industrial-grade manufacturing facility designed to be deployed anywhere in the world within 24 hours for on-demand drone production. Each week on the podcast, we bring you cutting-edge insights from unmanned industry leaders. Listen as they share the breakthroughs and technologies they're working on, the hard lessons they've learned, and the bold predictions about what the next 5 to 10 years in unmanned systems and advanced manufacturing have in store for us. Enjoying the show so far? Then be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Now back to the show. So let's use that as a segue now to talk about a couple different things. Where do you think this type of technology that you're building and that you're deploying in Ukraine, where do you think this goes in the next 1 to 2 years?
I mean, really also depends on a little bit what happens in Ukraine now. So we see a strong movement from Ukraine to not be dependent on Western supplies so that they control it themselves, how much and how many they build of something, because they don't want to be dependent on a German chancellor or whatever EU that gives them funding or not for something, or says, yeah, you can have like 5 more howitzers if they need like 50. I mean, why should they ask for 5? I mean, obviously, I am repeating myself. We gave them too little, too late. So they want to define the speed of themselves, and so I think we see that changing. Also, I see a decrease in price. We do see that Ukrainian defense companies are starting to be very competitive because they're also limited by the government on the cross margin they are allowed to make on these systems, because the intention is obviously not to make these defense companies as rich as possible, but buy as much as possible with the little money they have. So I do understand that. But what does that mean for us, for others in Europe and the US? It probably means we will, in order to make the same amount of money, we have to supply more at a lower price point. And I think, but that brings reliability and all of that up. So I think it's good what we're seeing. It's good that a loitering munition might not cost like 200K anymore, but maybe 50.
Yep.
And an ISR drone is not 150 or 250 in case of a Puma, but maybe like below 80 or something,
Yep.
which is even still a lot of money. I mean, 80,000 euros, you can get like a premium car for that.
Yeah.
I mean,
pretty nice German car for 80,000 euros, huh?
correct. So obviously they're building more than a few hundred per year. So, I mean, all of this is affected by something, right? So
Right.
you cannot expect like a company like Quantum with like 400 engineers or people to survive on a few hundred drones that cost nothing, right? So, I mean, we got to be fair. So that means higher volumes at a lower price point. You cannot just ask for a lower price point, but not increase volumes, right?
Where do you think the line is between lower price point and a system that works? Because it's one of the things when I talk to Ukrainians, they're like, sometimes we're too obsessed with price. If we put better sensors, cameras, radio links on it, we might go from 5% success to 10 or 15% success. And that would be a dramatic improvement, right? On the use of systems.
Correct. Also, we are seeing that, I mean, the spot where we operate in is like 3-hour plus flight time. That has a value. It's not that we're competing with 12-minute flight time of an FPV copter system, right? We really go like 50 miles out. We have Silvus, Mesh IP, ManIA, all the software licenses you can upgrade from those guys that really make it robust. And they appreciate the value of that, and they see that, right? So they have tried low-cost data links, and they're failing, so they go back to it. And same applies for gimbals and sensors. There's great gimbals coming from Israel, which cost something. But then again, we just had that in Hohenfels a few days ago. There was a 4-star from the US. There was some Quantum personnel involved. There was some exercise. We were deploying ghosts and Quantum vectors and PDW. Is
PDWs?
that like, yeah. And so it was really good to see and compete head on with some of these systems. And I can tell you, we did great. I'm not going to tell you how some of our competitors did, but
did anything fall out of the sky?
Well, I heard that some of the rotary wings didn't make it, and which is okay because you need to fail and in order to adopt and iterate and get better. But it should not be the customer who does that, right?
So what message would you have to DoD senior officials or senior military officials in Europe around like how do they make decisions on what products to buy or what criteria should they be thinking about when they buy autonomous systems?
I think they should not only obviously only look in the US, they should also look to Europe in some areas. But I think what really helps is, have, and the US is really good at that, to be honest, compared to Germany, where there is tender processes, you can get like a 3-digit million volume contract and never actually show something fly. Mm-hmm. I mean, isn't that crazy that somebody buys a few thousand systems without having ever checked the system in operational conditions? Mm-hmm. So I think the US is much better in having these fly-offs and demos, but I think it's probably helpful to have a broader scope and talk to industry leaders like you to really make sure that you're not missing out on companies, because the speed of evolvement and adoption is so high. I think there is very few people in the industry, maybe Bobby and you and US industry, and they're one of the few that probably have the whole picture of what's out there, but cannot probably expect that from a 3-star general.
Yeah. So we need to get better at sharing information and really understanding the operational environments these systems are going to have to operate in.
Yeah, and I mean, you have the blue list and the green list, and so all of this, the idea behind it is the right thing, right? But the way it's done and how hard it is to get on these lists or onto these lists or finding out who made the list and who didn't make the list is like, oh God, who's making these lists, right? I mean, the wrong companies are on there and the right companies are not on there, right?
Yeah.
So,
Flo, did you make the blue UAS list?
I don't think we made it.
So let's just have that be something when we're talking to our listeners. A company with tens, if not hundreds of thousands of operational hours in Ukraine did not make the blue UAS list at DIU. That sounds criminal to me.
Yeah. Or we missed out on applying at the right time to the right person. I don't know. It's a complicated process. So I would love to make it. I think we're working on it now, but yeah, we probably should be on there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Flo, if people want to reach out to you, learn more about Quantum or Stark, or talk to you yourself, where can they find you online?
So probably the best place to reach me is LinkedIn. I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Twitch and Twitter and all of that. So I think LinkedIn is truly the place to be to reach the people that care and that are part of and are shaping this industry. Yeah, so LinkedIn.
Great.
Thanks for listening to the Drone Wars podcast. Each week, we bring you fascinating conversations with leaders shaping the future of air, sea, land, and space technologies. Catch new episodes every Tuesday wherever podcasts can be found. Until then, we'll see you next time.